So this is a thing. Herald of Peace. Harmonix. Famously based off of the Polish artillery bear, Wojtek, I believe his name was. So he's not an artillery officer, he is an infantry officer. We've got an infantry field attack. He's fairly easy to unlock. It only requires 5 million cash reserves being farmed out of the city you're in, so it should only take a couple of days to get him if you're even in a level 1 city, or an afternoon if you're in a level 3 or currently playing in a level 4 and still haven't unlocked him. So, shall we begin? Brutal Force increases the damage of this officer's troop by up to 50% and its normal attack damage by up to 40% for 8 seconds. Now, for a infantry field officer, it's a bit weird that we don't have a coefficient damage. However, infantry when they're in bunker mode constantly are firing. There's no real break in the reload time. There is a little one, but it's not really significant. Do I think this is particularly good? I'm not sure. To be perfectly honest with you guys, I don't actually know if this is any good at all. The issue being is that coefficient damage works off of the unit's damage, and the unit damage for infantry is very low. So we're getting a massive boost to unit damage here. It's kind of hard to tell if this would be worthwhile. I'm kind of on the fence about it. It's nice to see the infantry getting an attack officer that we can use, an actual officer we can use, but at the same time we're not getting any coefficient damage output from him, so I'm a bit reluctant to say this is a good skill until I've done any testing with this officer. I'm afraid I'm not really sure how to grade this, so it's going to sit in. It's going to get scored a 3 because I don't think this is a bad skill. I don't think this skill is going to give any particular leverage to you in terms of actual damage output either. I think it's just going to give you a nice flat increase across the board. And that's okay. The infantry are struggling at the moment, even though they have quite a few officers available to them. They are struggling. So we go on to the second skill. It is Inspiring Roar. Increase the firepower of the officer's infantry unit by up to 40%. So we're gonna. I like this because it sticks within the theme of keeping a flat increase across the board for the infantry. I think it's a 4. 40% is pretty high. Firepower is particularly useful. It reduces your chance to miss. It increases your damage, albeit minimally, and it also reduces your reload time significantly. So firepower is useful, and if we're going in the direction I think we're going with this officer, I think that might be pretty good, which is application of utility. But we'll carry on and have a look. Okay, so his third skill is Intimidating Howl. It's a special skill. The attacks of this officer's infantry troops slow the target, reducing the target speed by up to 30% for 4 seconds and can be triggered once every 4 seconds. I literally just said that it's an application. So we're reducing the reload time, increasing the accuracy, which then in turn will affect something like this. We're going to be able to apply a debuff to a target, reducing a target speed. Now, infantry don't move particularly quickly and can be outpaced very, very suddenly on the field. However, they're not exactly slow, and they can keep up with quite a few units. I like this skill. The downside is you can only train it onto infantry units. And there are no dedicated infantry setups for damage at the moment. but this is leaning in towards infantry utility. So if you were one of those weirdos who had 2 lots of infantry units in your base, I could start seeing a place for this guy. I think this is another 3. This skill, I don't hate it. I think it's pretty good. The downside being is the infantry is not going to keep up with the target, even if it is slowed. It's very difficult for it to do that. So the infantry have to physically get to their target first, so that's not necessarily something that you can rely on particularly easily. This is more like if you're in a massive AG that's smashing against another massive AG, this might come in handy. I think this is a 3. It's very situational. Brave Companion. Increases the damage of this officer's troop by up to 10% and its damage resist by up to 10%. It's a balanced skill. It can be trained in on your aids. This is a fantastic skill. A damage buff and damage resist buff. This is a 5. It's a nice flat 10 right across the board. If you're looking to use a field tank or a field helicopter where you're predominantly engaging in an attack against other units out in the field, this is an excellent skill to train up and put on your aid for that unit. I love it. I think it's great. I think it has its applications for infantry as well, because we're looking towards stacking the damage resist, which is great. So yeah, I think this is a good skill. I think even if you're not using this officer, this is just a fantastic skill. We are onto the awakened ability, Primitive Rage. The attacks of this officer's infantry troop have a 20% chance to deal skill damage to the target, damage coefficient of 600. This effect can be triggered once every 8 seconds. So it sounds good. You get free damage coefficient once every 8 seconds, and you get a 20% chance on doing it. So we've removed the charge bar of 8 seconds, which we can reduce on pretty much every single officer across the board, and we've been given a 20% chance for it to activate at least once. Now, 600 damage coefficient, even by infantry standards, is low. There's plenty of other infantry-based officers that will deal double this. There is versatile officers that you can equip to the infantry unit, which are superior in every single way. I can see how the 20% thing would work, because we've got a lot of reload time available to us, a lot of firepower available to us. So there's a high probability of that just popping off within a second as soon as it goes over the 8-second margin. I don't think this skill is worth it. I don't think this skill makes this bear. I think this skill actually breaks this bear. I think this skill, if you work towards awakening Herald of Peace, I think you are making a grave mistake. Damage wise, off the top of my head, Lonesome Star, he's dealing 1500 damage coefficient with a splash of 750, and his awakened is the infantry officer. This officer's infantry take 10% less skill damage than We've also got a shield coefficient on him. I mean, this awakened skill is a 1. It's an atrocious skill to have for 720 statue investment. It is not very good. I don't care if he is a new officer. Guys, if you're looking at infantry and you're looking at how you can best make your infantry deal damage and be resilient, there is only one skill to consider, and that is Brave Companion, and you need to train this onto whatever unit you're currently using. So that gives him an overall score of 3.2. It's not particularly stellar. It's very average. You know, we're sitting 3 in the 3 bracket. It's not a 1, it's not a 2, it's also not a 4 or a 5. Would I recommend using this officer? Absolutely not. His points of 3.2 reflect his capability, in my opinion, and his capability is that it's very mediocre. We can compare him to Lonesome Star directly. Lonesome Star deals twice the amount of damage. He comes with a shield coefficient that can be triggered for 2 seconds once every 8 seconds, much in the same way that the coefficient damage can be applied by the bear, except this doesn't require you to have him awakened, and this is also a trainable ability. We've got HP, blast damage resist, we've got skill damage buff, and we've also got reduces the skill damage taken by the infantry unit. If you are using infantry to deal damage, you don't want the bear, but you do want this skill. And you probably want this skill on Lonesome Star, and you probably want Lonesome Star in as the aid. Just get this guy up to 30. You can train this in on tanks as well. Just get him up to 30 and then pump in the minimum amount of statues you need to get this balanced skill up to level 5, and that's it. From that day forward, you're never going to need to touch this guy ever again. It is what it is, guys. He's not a very good officer.